Is the carrot or the stick the most appropriate tool to help people with disabilities back to work?
So what you're referring to, Catherine, I'm assuming, is something that was mentioned in the autumn statement yesterday, which is the government wanting to tighten up criteria for who can claim the highest level of incapacity benefit. And your view on that is?
I think I wholeheartedly agree with Jeremy Hunt in that people who are not working for reasons of illness or disability are a hugely missed resource. However, I think that a truly compassionate government...
That's what you are, chat. That's what you are, disabled people. You're a resource for the business sector. Humans? No, not humans at all.
Would headline on removing the barriers for those people returning to work rather than the punitive measures which were outlined in the statement.
Okay.
I mean, maybe I went in too hard to start with. But even so, like, the framing is so, maybe give me the shivers. But she's right in saying that we need to just make sure that we have help for them rather than trying to be punitive. And also fix the NHS. That's the problem, right? We need to fix the NHS. We need to increase capacity in the NHS.
Patrick?
Well, I think we have a really, really fundamental problem in the way our entire education and economic system is established. We have in this country a record number of job vacancies. Something like what, 700,000 job vacancies? 900,000 job vacancies. Now, I heard last year that Tories celebrated that number as if it was a good thing. There are lots of jobs out there, but it isn't a good thing. It's an absolute failure. Every one of those job vacancies is a failure of our system of education to prepare people for work.
No, it's not. It's capitalism. Read Kalecki, you fuckers. Literally, just read Kalecki and you'll know that full employment is not the goal of any capitalist society because it gives workers too much power, right? This guy was literally doing wage price spiral nonsense earlier, and the tight labour market is why that is happening. And that's why capitalists do not want full employment. And this is why I support a federal jobs guarantee or a state jobs guarantee. Because it gives power to workers for bargaining.
Single person in this country ought to have the opportunity to have an education that gets them ready for some job. Everybody should contribute. 9 million people in this country have no job. Now, that is what are called the economically inactive. It is a number that was invented, I think, after Thatcher shut the coal mines to hide how bad the unemployment figures were. 9 million people. It's something like 25% of all working-age people don't have a job.
And I think in that 9 million, Patrick, that also includes students and the retired.
So it's 7 million. The figure is 7 million excluding students.
OK. Still, 7 million people is a very, very large number of people.
It's not a large number of people. Like, OK, we don't have a great labour force participation rate. It's not as good as some other countries, right? It's not better, some worse, right? But the idea that labour force participation is some kind of magic panacea for a good country, I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that. And what you're trying to say is, what they're trying to do is trying to inject more workers into the labour market, specifically to kneecap the bargaining power of workers. That's deliberately what it is. What they're trying to do is trying to make sure that the bargaining power of workers is undermined. It's exactly what I was talking about before, right? Supply side labour market reform. That's what they've been doing continually. And that's why they want to get disabled people into work. Not because it's edifying, not because we need to increase our employment rate. It's to undermine the bargaining power of workers.
And I think that is a failure of our education system. Like, we're talking about a school system that, last year Rishi Sunak said all pupils should do maths to 18. Well, I don't think they should.
Have we got quite far from the question, Patrick?
Sorry.
So the question is the carrot or stick the most... Forgive me, Patrick, because honestly, we're on a roll with you. I mean, it's fascinating. But I'm just saying, is the carrot or stick the most appropriate tool to help people with disabilities back to work?
The
That's
point
the question.
is, everybody should have an opportunity to work. That's my point is, everybody should have an opportunity to work. We should help them all back to work by educating them, and if they've got past school age, every bit of help we should do, because every person who is not working is a wasted opportunity for them personally and for us.
I think the question is about how you get them back there. Isabel?
I mean, I didn't hear that much of a stick.
Well, you make work pay. You literally make work pay. That's what you need to do to get people into work. You need to have better wages and you need to have a less big gap between the power of workers and the power of owners. You need to reduce the gap of CEO pay and worker remuneration. Have an actual high wage economy, which requires strong unions.
Maybe I'm just very hard line on this, but what I heard is that people would have 2 years in which they would be fully supported to get a job. And I don't think it's good for people to be out of work. It's not good for their morale. And I think that people on disability benefits and sick pay are an enormous untapped resource. And it is better for them. If they can work, please, let's get them into work. And I don't think it's much of a stick to say if, after 18 months of looking, when there are that many job vacancies, you still refuse to take a job that you can do.
But this is about disabled people, right? You're just assuming that all of these jobs are things that people can do, even though they've got disability, which is a great big reckon, right? You've got any data for this? Do you have any substantial conversations with the disabled? Have you spoken to the people who actually administer these means tests, whether or not these are jobs that they can actually do? No, you just reckon that they can do it, right? You might have a point for the actual unemployed, but unemployment is like at record lows or just above record lows, right? Like unemployment hasn't been this low since Callaghan.
And you get another 6 months after that to still muck around, then we're going to take your benefits away. It's not unreasonable.
Okay, I think we're talking about two different things here. Yeah. Just because you've got people who are on job seekers allowance, say, and if they don't engage with the process after a certain period of time, their benefits may be cut entirely. And when it comes to incapacity benefits, so people who are just unable to work, what the government is suggesting, correct me if I'm wrong, is tightening the criteria for that from next year, which I think is what you're...
I mean, taking away free prescriptions and taking away all access to resources they have is just going to fucking put them in the grave. Giving people bonuses for more people they kick off disability is just terrible. Yeah, that's how these people work, yeah.
You're referring to. So let's hear some of the people in the audience. I will come to you in a minute. Yes, woman there in the green top.
Hi, yeah, going back to what this lady said about disability benefits and getting people back into work, I totally agree with that. But where's the incentive to get people to work full-time when really 16 hours a week will do you? You top up your payments through benefit and then nobody has to work.
No, that's not how that works. It's not more financially prudent to work less and then get the benefits, right? I've calculated this shit. That's not true.
Full time.
Yeah.
I see it all the time.
Do you think it should be a bit tougher?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely tougher on it. Help people that get back.
I fucking hate these people. Disabled people just get the absolute shitty end of the stick when it comes to this policy, and it's people who just don't understand the figures, who just go, I reckon, who ruin this stuff.
Want to get back into work, by all means, that's great. But a lot of people I've come across say, well, I can't do extra hours, I can only stay on 16 because it'll affect my benefits. Yeah. And that's so wrong. That's so wrong.
Okay. Person here in
But
the
there's a
front.
difference between the amount it would affect your benefits and then working full-time and earning more, because you do just earn more.
In the glasses, yes.
Like 40% of universal credit claimants are in work anyway.
No, further back. Sorry, we've both got glasses. Yes, you.
I want to know what you're going to help employers do to get disabled people into work, because I'm disabled and I face constant abuse for using a disabled badge, for using accessible toilets, and I have had periods where I have been out of work long term because I have
Blame the woman who spoke before you.
been unable to work. During that time, I was having to sleep during the day, take multiple medications that made me drowsy and had significant side effects. And one of the biggest problems for disabled people on benefits, coming from somebody who's been through that system and come out the other side, is that what the government did was they stopped doctors being responsible for who could and couldn't work based on a medical needs, and they moved it to external agencies who have no medical training, who do not know that person, and who cannot say with genuinely how that person can go to work. But how will, if I'm an employer running a factory, how are you going to support me in getting the right infrastructure in place, the right pastoral support in place to support this group of people moving through? It's a wasted opportunity.
True, absolutely 100% correct, yeah. The explicit point of moving the remit for this stuff, for work capability, from actual trained doctors to ATOS miracles is exactly the problem, 100%, she nailed it.
And you said, can I just ask you, you received abuse at work for having disability?
I get abuse constantly. I get shouted at by the public constantly because the government and the media make disabled people out to be scroungers on benefits,
but just
and
so
we're not.
Just so I'm clear, not that they should be shouting, of course they shouldn't, but why are they doing that? I mean, what...
She literally just said that they do it because they've been conditioned by media, by the politicians to believe that they're scroungers when they are not. We literally had a Telegraph article we read on stream, that was trying to call out Motability recipients as getting too much funding from the state. People who literally need cars to be able to function, right, as disabled people, getting attacked by the fucking Telegraph for needing Motability and for getting funding because of Motability. This is the level to which the disabled people are used as a scapegoat, right? And in this country no less, where UN special rapporteurs have described the treatment of the disabled as a human catastrophe and in violation of human rights by the United Nations, the fact that we still have this conversation every single time this comes up, they try and paint the disabled as scroungers and skivers, and it's the politicians and the media that are to blame for this. Even at a time at which we have, like, world shaming, we are shamed on the world stage for our treatment of the disabled, and we still have this narrative. It's sickening. Absolutely sickening.
When you're at work, what are people criticising you for?
Because how can I do a job if my medication is giving me side effects, if I'm needing to sleep? And then you're putting staff against each other. The employer can't sack me. They have legal responsibilities. I can't do my job. My teammates aren't appreciative of the little effort I can do. There's not enough flexible working, even post-COVID pandemic. And the infrastructure is not there to support these people.
OK, thank you.
And the original question was about carrot and stick. And in the case of disabled people, because there's two parts of this cohort, it's much more carrot. There's £2.5 billion to try and help people back in the workplace. Society's duty to people.
So how would you help that lady there then? Because you're making the very specific point. This is your life. This is how it affects you, and you found it really difficult. And even when you've been in work, the employer has not been sufficiently supported to make it that straightforward for you.
Well, the lady's in work, and it sounds like a terrible experience and discrimination.
I'm self-employed because I can't get a job in an employment situation.
So how would you help her? I mean, if it's about incentive, there's a person right there
there's two and a half
that you could incentivise.
So there's
Remember IDS shutting down Reemploy because they just sit around drinking tea. Then a couple of years later did a talk about how the disabled ought to be in employment. Yeah, I know IDS is such a demon, an absolute the butcher. I call him, or Tory scum. I should call him because I'm legally allowed to call him Tory scum.
There's £2.5 billion in the system now that we've made available for the first time for more coaching, to make sure there's more treatment in place, to try and help employers identify opportunities so that there's no longer the same stigma or discrimination against people.
A large proportion, my revenge.
People who are disabled. 1 in 5 people who are disabled currently would like more work and are unable, perhaps like this lady, to get it. And we know more generally how bad the societal outcomes are for people who grow up in workless households. Once people are out of the workplace for a significant period of time, every social metric declines. So it's the original question was carrot or stick. It's carrot in respect to disabled people, but we do have to reform a system where there are 5.5 million people of working age, a real break on our economy, employers not being able to get the staff that they need, and we've got 1 million vacancies, and at the same time we're having to bring in very significant...
Yes, let's loosen that labour market. Let's loosen the labour market. Let's kneecap the workers. They've got too much power now. Oh, don't you say that.
Numbers of people through the immigration system. We've got to reform that, and that's one of the tough, not always popular, but one of the tough long-term decisions that was baked into this week's autumn statement.
Right. So your shadow employer.
Yeah, employers don't even want to hire disabled people. If you're an employer, why the hell would you want to employ somebody who you might not be able to get consistent work out of because they would be difficult to be able to have to continually manage, right? If you want to get people into work who are disabled, you have to provide loads of additional subsidy to be able to ensure that all of the business potential business problems are somehow waylaid by that.
Minister,
yeah.
How would you help this? What's your name? Sorry,
Kate.
How would you help, Kate?
So we need to really change the way job centres operate, because one of the things that I've learnt, particularly listening to people with disabilities who've experienced very similar things, is how the job brokering and the conversations that happen, I don't think they really work at the moment. And in fact, Scope, the charity, have created their own employment service precisely because the government's is such a failure, so that they can talk with disabled people and employers to try to shape.
Have you ever just considered maybe that they just continue the level of welfare support that they currently get? Also, universal basic income. That's a Green Party policy that I promoted on my YouTube channel the other day. Actually, I uploaded the segment this morning.
Employment opportunities.
Yes, so if you want actual proper support, i.e. universal basic income, you should vote for Green, right? The Green Party official policy has been UBI apparently for 50 years. I didn't even know. So if you want good policy on this, you should vote Green.
Better and try and shape our workplaces so that we can include disabled people fully, because it is such a waste of talent in our country at the moment. People with disabilities have a huge amount to offer our country, and we've got this massive waste. And
So can I ask, the announcement that was made in the autumn statement yesterday, which is to tighten up the criteria for those who can claim incapacity benefit and take job seekers allowance or unemployment benefit away entirely from people who don't engage with the process, is that something Labour would stick with or would change?
So on the work capability assessment, the process is broken at the moment, and the government have said they're going to completely replace it. And at the moment, we're waiting to see what they've got on offer.
But on what
Can
I
I
just
just
asked
say
you?
what I would like to do is to see the process improved quite a lot, because it's reams and reams of paperwork, and often you get a poor
When they're talking about sanctions, you get the feeling it's more to try and ire up their base rather than it's a useful thing. Oh, 100%. It's about narrativization rather than actual policy.
decision.
Because it costs more, right? Actually, and their plan to means test who get access to benefits after the 6 months of not being there, this is also predicted to cost more than the money that they would save. So it's about performative cruelty and not about saving money for the economy.
The first time, and it takes a huge amount of time. So we need to fix that broken system.
But of course, no one's going to bring that up because no one will have done the research. Like, you know, people who get paid to do the research. Not very much, I would say, because I don't have enough followers. It's not that you guys aren't generous, because you are very generous. I'm just not big enough to make loads of money from this yet at time of recording.
There have always been, for people who are out of work, there have always been conditions in our system, right? So
knowing things is communism.
And so I'm asking, would you keep the conditions that the government introduced yesterday?
So on the issue of, they've floated this idea of, cutting people off and having a knock-on impact on NHS prescriptions and things like that.
Well, their policy is, I mean, I'll keep saying the same thing, but what they're suggesting, I'll just ask you one thing, because I must bring this up. Very specifically then, on the policy idea that if you're looking for a job, not if you're on an incapacity benefit, you're looking for a job, you're on job seekers allowance, and if you don't...
What are the odds that Alison McGovern will lose her seat at the next election? I think McGovern is fighting against Joe Bird. So if McGovern is fighting against Joe Bird, there's an outside chance.
Engage the process after a certain period of time, your benefit will be taken away entirely. Would Labour stick with that?
No, I want to see what they're saying and how it's practicable first, and we haven't had those details. But from what I've heard, I don't like it. But the thing that I would say on this...
Briefly, because I must let...
Perhaps if I might just be able to speak, the point about the way the system works is you should have to engage. Of course you should. You should have to engage with it. And there's always been consequences. But there's responsibilities on both sides, right?
2 years is what people are doing.
This is a terrible answer. Again, if you just done the research and you said it's going to cost more money than it would save, right? And we're fiscally responsible, right? We don't believe that we should put ideology above pragmatism. And it's not fiscally pragmatic to spend more to punish people.
A responsibility to go in and talk to your work coach. They've got a responsibility to offer you real help. And I would say most people go in and talk to work coaches who are trying to do a good job, hamstrung by the government, because they've run down technical education.
I'm still not clear. Do you like the policy or not?
Yes, we do have a policy. I'm explaining it.
It's quite a simple policy.
It's really simple.
And you've explained it already. Don't take it from again, Andrew, in the nicest possible way.
The government's got to give people real help.
You're not booing it. You're not booed that policy.
The government has got to give people real help. They have a responsibility to do that, just as we all have a responsibility to work hard.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is your next government.
Oh, well.
Right. Cheers and...
Good fun. Labour comms working just as well as always. Big Madge, if you're watching, I know that you're having the same opinions as me on this.
Thank you. With last year's net migration figures at an all-time high, is it time for the government to admit the system is broken?
Right, so the last year's figures have been revised quite significantly up to 750,000. The figures for this year are a little bit down from that, 607,000. But there's, 672,000, but there's quite a big margin of error. Yeah. So it might be revised up again next year, or it might in fact be revised down. It's impossible, really, at this moment to say. Isabel?
Look, I think these figures are an absolute catastrophe for the government. I think they're a catastrophe for this country. We are basically importing 750,000 people a year at a time.
No, not a year. In the last year, right? It's explicitly been higher this year because of Ukraine and Hong Kong, right? It's not 750,000 a year. It's just this last year alone.
when we have got all these people on out-of-work benefits, many of whom would like to be able to take jobs. We do not need to be importing this many people. And if you are going to import 750,000 people a year, you have got to build the infrastructure to go with it. You can't have mass immigration and not actually have the schools, the hospitals, the GP surgeries, the homes and the roads to support those people.
And the trains. They don't have to drive cars, right? We have trains. Of course, trains are communism now. But at least somebody from the right is making the correct point. At least someone who's coming from the right and saying, well, you can have immigration, but if you do, you need to have this investment in public infrastructure, which is true, right? But she wants to not have the infrastructure and not have the immigration. I'm not fussed, but we do need investment in public services, way more in capital investment, which we've been short of, right? Almost like it was deliberate, because they didn't want to do that, and also wanted to scapegoat immigrants. Weird how that works, isn't it?
So the impact of that is that the standard of living for everybody goes down. We've all seen the impact on public services, and this is a government that has time and again told us that it is going to bring down net migration, and has time and again done the absolute precise opposite. They have presided over mass migration. You have basically presided over open borders. You are letting people still coming in, despite your stop the boats mantra. Every single week, more people come in.
What would you like to see in migration?
I would like to see net zero migration.
Zero migration?
Net zero, because I don't think we need any more people.
So when
well, so much for a referendum on net zero from Reform UK then. Ayo.
You have situations like when you have the National Farmers... Well, when you have the National Farmers Union, for example, saying we need people to come in and pick the crops because there aren't enough people who live in this country want to do it.
Well, they may not want to do it, but there are plenty of people who are capable of doing it.
But when there was a scheme to try and get...
The market has decided that you must either die or pick fruit. Your choice, Britain.
People to do it, hardly any British people...
Well, that comes back to our question before about whether we're incentivising people to take jobs. And as for...
So you think we're making it too easy for them not to do it? Is that your point?
Of course we need to have the brightest and best people here. I'm all in favour of that. You know, the NHS heavily...
I think, to be fair, Isabel, actually, the bright and best people should stay in subcontinental Asia and concentrate on making it economically prosperous instead of coming over here and teaching how to make chicken tikka masala.
...relies on immigration, on brilliant doctors and nurses and other healthcare professionals. We need those at the moment. Why? Because we're not actually paying our own healthcare professionals well enough or looking after them well enough to stick with the NHS themselves.
Patrick,
also true.
With last year's net migration figures at an all-time high, is it time for the government to admit the system is broken?
Well, I mean, it's about the only thing we ever hear them talking about, and the fact that they have failed to control that one thing that seems to be the only thing they really give a stuff about seems obviously like a failure of the system. It is, but it feels to me just incredibly sad because we you know, going back to the point I mistakenly made on the last question, we do have lots and lots of people that don't have work, and I feel like we have to really take a broader look at what sort of society we want, what jobs do we really value in society. You know, we pay certain people lots of money for doing jobs that seem very easy, and we pay people very little for jobs that seem incredibly difficult. Why are nurses paid so little? Why, you know, what do we as a society value in the jobs that are available?
But that's not how markets work. The market is God, the market is king, and the market has decided that we should be paying important people not very much and paying people who just shift money around loads of money, right? I mean, you can change that if you want, have different ways of wage setting. I would agree with you, but that's not how markets work. They're based upon the demand for the kind of labour, the demand for the product being sold to be able to give the money there. And if you want to argue, for example, that we should take more active roles in changing the way that we set wages in this country, I would agree with you, right? But you're going to have a different economic model entirely, which you're not getting given anywhere else.
Available, because if we paid more, then more people would want to do them. But we've got to give people a chance to you know, of an education that allows them to enter into these workplaces. Because at the moment we seem to be obsessed with preparing people for a life that goes, you know, university, A-levels, university, some sort of job. But it feels like we are letting down a very huge part of you know, young people by having an education system that doesn't give them broad stuff. You know, we're missing. You know, we're hundreds of thousands of plumbers and carpenters and builders short. Why are we not teaching plumbing and carpentry at school? Where is it?
Okay. Let's hear from the man there in the grey shirt and the glasses.
I think there needs to be a bit of a paradigm shift in terms of what people accept as an appropriate job for them to be doing within the country as a whole. But over and above that, coming back to the point that Isabel raised about the 672,000, 121,000 of those have been people who have been employed by the NHS. There are no people suitable to fill those roles at this point in time. So to turn around and say it's not appropriate to be bringing individuals in...
I didn't say that, though, did I? I actually said quite the opposite of that. I said that...
Net zero, you said.
Yeah, but that's... Yeah, it doesn't mean nobody comes in. It means you balance how many come in with how many who go out.
What if nobody leaves? What? So if nobody leaves, then... yeah, you are not going to be able to have any additional doctors in the NHS because you've mandated yourself to net zero. And if you do mandate yourself to net zero, the fact that our birth replacement rate, or our births are below replacement rate, means you'll end up having a deflationary economy as population decreases. Export bankers, import fruit pickers. True.
But in a situation where you don't have the people able to do the job, you obviously have to get them in. Okay. So the fact that the numbers are increasing...
That's fine, as long as... I mean, every year lots of people leave the country as well. Probably for good reason.
Okay, thank you. The woman there, yes, in the same room.
I just really think that the way, the kind of narrative around immigration is an absolute disgrace, to be honest. And it's embarrassing. The way these people come here, they've been through, you know, a hellish ordeal. And
well, also, a lot of this is legal migration.
Yes,
students, people coming here to work, that kind of thing.
But it's the treatment. I don't know why anybody would want to come here. It's the treatment of people is terrible.
What, of legal migrants? You're saying?
No, not of legal. Of
but this
asylum seekers.
We're not talking about asylum seekers.
Yeah.
All right, the man there with the white shirt and the dark jacket. Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of it's to do with the culture of the people in the UK. I don't feel like a lot of people in the UK want to work, and then they don't want to work hard. So these jobs are left vacant.
Anybody, did they remember watching that BBC thing where they got like old people, some like boomer types, to speak to Keir Starmer, and they were like, "Oh, young people don't want to work anymore. They just don't want to work, do they?" And I was just like unemployment is like record lows. What are you talking about?
You know, a minimum wage job is just not majority of the time going to be filled by a UK-born person, and that's what I tend to find. And it's not about education. I think you can have many more educated.
There's no. Where's this evidence? No stats. Just I reckon. I reckon that you don't get many jobs from minimum wage people, white people. What's he talking about? Where's the stats? Where's the evidence? Where's the data?
People, but it's filling those lower roles and then building that up, and also experience as well. You don't tend to find that much anymore.
And can I ask, are you an employer? Are you coming from that?
Yeah, you don't find experience because people won't hire you unless you have experience.
No, I'm employed, but I'm talking at the point as well of just general people that I find working at the same level. Not a lot of people are proud of the work that they put out, you know?
True, and so people say there's no assimilation to British culture. Exactly. This guy is fully assimilated, right? He was probably born here anyway, so...
And it's hard to find as an employer as well, I empathise. It's hard to find people that want to do the job properly.
Okay, and the woman there in the red and black top.
Hi there, I'd like to...
Yeah, exactly. People don't want to do rubbish-paid, bad jobs with no benefits, with shitty terms and conditions, right? And no union representation. They don't want to do your shitty jobs anymore. So if you want to have people who want to work and want to work well, pay them more, give them better benefits, make them feel respected, give them a vocation and vertical progression opportunities. What time is it over here? It's currently just gone midnight.
Agree with the comments that I just heard, actually. I'm a Canadian Brit, and I think I'd like to ask all of the panel, as long as we have a first class and a second class stamp, we're going to have this problem. Why don't we have next day delivery and 2-day delivery? It's
a paradigm shift. Just for okay, hang on a minute. You might need to explain what has that got to do with it?
Because I'm saying that we need a mindset change about what jobs we're prepared to do. And the gentleman said we have people that don't want to do certain things and do want to do it because we're sending children off to university. I've got 3 of them myself.
Unemployment is literally record lows. What are you talking about? We literally have the lowest unemployment since Callahan. People are doing jobs. We just have understand how tight labour markets work. Jesus fucking Christ, you simpletons. This might be the first question time I've ever watched where I hate the audience more than I hate the panel.
And they come out with these expectations of what I can do. We've all got to do jobs from the bottom up. Do you know what I mean? It's an attitude.
So
and
you're
it's a
talking about
shift.
first and
Look,
second.
the issue, of course, isn't actually... It's not the problem, is that people going to university and they're not doing jobs right. All those people who told us, okay, get good grades, go to university, end up working in McDonald's, and then you finish your university degree, like, huh, too good for McDonald's, are we? That's the narrative that everybody gets spun. And the thing is, John Byrne Murdoch has done the data on this, right? They've run the numbers, right? The issue isn't that there are too many graduates who aren't prepared to do the bad jobs. There aren't enough graduate jobs because of lack of investment. That's the problem, right? Everywhere in the UK is seeing a drop in graduate wages and a drop in number of graduate jobs, apart from London. But overall across the UK, the number of graduate jobs per capita is going down, right? Which shows you, if you look at the data and you're an idiot, it makes you think in a vacuum that that's because there are too many graduates and that they won't do other jobs. Whereas if you look at America, they have graduate jobs in everywhere. They're still increasing with the number of graduates. Same thing is happening on the continent in Europe. But because you have a lack of investment in business investment, both public and private, to create graduate jobs, to create new graduate jobs, they therefore can't find a job that fits their skill set, right? That's not a problem with people not being willing to do work that's beneath them. It's that all that's left is work that they don't want to do, right? The jobs that they should be and could be doing with the skill set that they have are not being provided by business investment because of failure to manage the economy correctly. And that's what the evidence, what the data shows, right? From the Financial Times, no less, right? This is why you read shit and you get good at shit rather than going, I reckon, and then going on a national panel show to speak to genuine politicians and realising just how much of a fucking clown you are who doesn't know how statistics work, who's not even bothered looking at the statistics and just goes, I reckon I know how to fix this shit. Let me go on Question Time and tell everybody about it. Idiots.
Class stamps as a metaphor.
Exactly.
I'm with you. Okay.
Exactly.
Everyone's like, oh, right, okay.
I thought we were going to talk about posties.
So, Alison.
Yeah, I mean, I've got lots of hard-working posties in my constituency. But
But things exactly, Sundry, you're exactly right. This is why people talk about common sense all the time. First of all, because it's how you have an opinion without looking at facts, right? You cannot have to bother looking at facts before forming your opinion. But it also makes everybody think that they have no ideology, but everybody else does. I don't have an ideology. I'm just common sense. No, everyone has an ideology. Everyone is ideologically captured. No one is to be immune to propaganda, right? Stop thinking that yours is common sense. It's just ideology, pure ideology.
So we're talking about migration figures, and Keir Starmer has said that these figures are shocking, and they're shockingly high. It's a failure.
And the question was, is the system broken? And I would say yes, because you shouldn't, as a firm, be able to say, we'll bring lots of people in unless you have got a programme to train people and to up their skills, pay people decently and be a part of our country and making our workforce strong. I think we've got to connect this to what we're doing on technical skills. And a couple of people have mentioned going to university or whatever. And I think, you know, whatever the institution you're in, we've got to really value technical skills. Actually, I know lots of people that I represent who work at minimum wage or nearly minimum wage, and they work really, really hard, and they deserve respect for it. Particularly, you know, care workers, for example, often, in my opinion, don't get paid what they're worth. So we've got to change that. So for me, this goes hand in hand with saying to employers, look, we've got to have a partnership here, and your bit of the partnership has got to be skills training and doing that properly. And the government has got to say, OK, we'll run job centres properly. And if you come in and you need help, we're going to say to you, not just get any job, but get the best job. Get a job with prospects. Get a job where you can... Hang on one second, I'm going to finish. I'm going to finish my point.
Okay.
You need a job with prospects where, yes, you can go in at the bottom, but you can work your way up to the top. And that is the change I think we need the government to do in our job centres. So Isabel, go ahead.
I just want to know if Labour is committed to lowering net migration. Are you committed to that?
So we think that it will come down, as the OBR has said, and clearly it should come down from the figures that we've seen. But
is my stream registered as an LLC for tax purposes? No, it's not. But it'd be funny if I did.
But the point is this:
as a business owner, I think that we should that the workers should seize the means of production. I am willing to give it up in search of full communism.
the problem I've got with what you were explaining is that the system that we've got for helping people get into work and move up in work is completely broken. So whilst I understand the concern with the figures that we're seeing today, the bit of the system that's really broken is the one that fails our people week in, week out, because they can't move up in work.
No commitment.
Andrew.
So the big number conceals the truth. And the truth within this is that the right answer for the UK cannot be Isabel's net zero. Our NHS depends on it. We're an ageing population, and we're also trying to bring in the brightest and most talented people around the world. So that answer doesn't work for the needs of the United Kingdom, our economy and our prosperity. The answer that Alison's party have advocated in the past, which is complete open borders, doesn't work because it doesn't get employers to invest in skills, it doesn't let us build careers for people of the future, and it addicts business to too much cheap labour. That's the long-term choice that this government has made. The biggest tax, the lady said earlier...
Well, the question is it time for the government to admit the system is broken? You're talking about what Isabel's saying and what Alison's saying. What about your own government?
Yeah, and I'm trying to talk about the long-term choices that we're making, because by getting businesses...
You don't have long-term
there was a huge tax cut for those businesses that are willing to invest in productivity.
Andrew, with the best one in the world, you're way off topic. You are. Is it time for the government to admit the system's broken? I had Jacob Rees-Mogg on today saying, obviously a colleague of yours, saying, I want to apologise.
The main point's the thrust, until he got onto, like, cheap labour and shit, like, the main thrust of his point was actually reasonably correct, right? It's that the current number is just because of, Ukraine and Hong Kong, it will come down, but we do need some because we need people to come in and do certain jobs. We have an ageing population. These are all not unreasonable points to make.
Because the immigration figures are too high and the government is responsible. Yeah. That's his view. Do you agree?
It is unsustainable, but with the greatest respect, I'm trying to explain how we get out of this unsustainable position.
How can anyone trust you? How can anyone trust you on this?
Well,
year after year, you've sold us a total lie.
Isabel isn't offering any answers.
I am
Isabel's offering the answers.
Well, you're the elected politician and you haven't given us any answers.
And if you don't interrupt me, I shall explain what we're trying to do. We want businesses to be more productive. We want them to invest both in training, but also in having better capital intensity that allows them to make the employees that we've got here already more productive, to do more with less, like other countries do. That will mean that we don't need to rely, as this country, as this economy has for decades, on unlimited, cheap migrant labour.
You have lost control of the borders. That's what's happened. Lost control.
That is the way forward, Isabel. That's what we did when the Chancellor yesterday talked about making full expensing permanent. That allows businesses to invest, to build their factories, to make employees more productive, which allows us to have a high-wage, high-skilled economy. And I know I've gone on a little bit, but I just came today from Airbus. We're in Stevenage. We've got.
I mean, business investment would be a good thing, but you need to have a stable economy with good public services, which we don't have because of austerity.
Fantastic, high-skilled, high.
I'm not even a social democrat, and even I'm not even a social democrat or a liberal, and I make better liberal and social democratic arguments than liberals or social democrats on this stuff. I just happen to be a communist who thinks that all of this shit is pointless. But I know the arguments, and I know them better than these people.
Wage opportunities for young people. This is the centre of UK space. It's also the centre of UK.
Come on. We're getting off topic now.
This is the future we want to build.
Okay.
Hey there, if you enjoyed the video, make sure that you like and leave a comment. That helps the video out in the algorithm. If you subscribe and ring the bell, it'll let you know when I go live. I stream every day on YouTube and Twitch. You can also follow all of my socials down in the description. And if you want to support me in a more financial manner, there's a join button for membership to just 99p to be a member on YouTube, as well as a Patreon, and there's some merch there as well. And hopefully I'll catch you on the next video. Take care.